So I think that you can make plenty of money while also having an impact on the world and not being just a pure profit maximizer.
It helped me to realize that money, again, was a blessing or a tool to be used to further life goals, impacts you want to make in the world, things like that. It's not actually the end, it's just the means to greater ends in your life.
Hey everyone, just arrived at Greenville-Spartanburg Airport. I'm on my way to Austin, Texas. This is an annual pilgrimage for me. I missed a year though. The pandemic feels kind of weird traveling. This conference is where I get my fix of talking to other YouTubers, podcasters, but it's all about talking about money and educating people. So excited to take you along with me on this journey. And of course, I'm going to interview some cool people along the way. And you can see in the background here, my Toyota Avalon. Speaking of money, that thing is paid for. Been going on 20 years now. It's 2003 version. We're in 2021. I still love it. Still works for me. Got me to the airport very easily. All right, guys, let's take a walk. So I made it to Austin, and I spent the day before the conference at the house of a friend of mine. I'm out in the hill country outside of Austin. You might not be able to see that, but that's the skyline of Austin here from the backyard. And so I'm going to be going to the conference today. I'm really excited about it. And I want to take you on a tour with me and share with you some insights and some things going on. But for me in this video, it's really not about the conference itself. It's actually about the origin story of Coach Carson, this channel, the podcast channel I have, and really how it came to be as you see it today, because it all started with this event. So the year was 2012, and for me personally, I actually had just had a daughter. My wife and I had a daughter. She was about a year and a half old, so that was definitely the focus of my life. But also from a real estate standpoint, we had just kind of gotten out of the recession. 2007, 8, and 9 was a tough time if you were a real estate investor. We were investing since 2003. We really ramped up our business in 2007, right before the downturn. Perfect timing, right? And so we survived, but we kind of took 2 steps forward, 2 steps back at times. We had a lot of negative cash flow on certain properties. And so during the recession, it was a little bit hairy, and we were really relieved in 2012. By the time I went to my first FinCon conference, I was really relieved because, hey, things are getting better. We're buying properties. We're having positive cash flow now. And so from a real estate standpoint, hey, we have a good foundation here, and I think we're going to be just fine. From a Coach Carson standpoint, I had a small consulting business basically, or some local investors were saying, hey Chad, how did you find properties, or how do you analyze deals? And so I would go speak at local clubs. I would teach a few classes here and there. And actually it started a local mastermind group. So about 7, 8, 9 people. And we would meet for 6 months, and I would help them and I'd coach them really on a small scale. So everything for me was local, and I was writing a little newsletter and sharing articles and stories, but everything was just with people in South Carolina and North Carolina. And I had met, and started following a little website a few years ago before that called Bigger Pockets. And I was actually contributing a few articles to Bigger Pockets, but really everything I was doing from a teaching standpoint. I really enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed sharing with people, seeing some transformation, but it was very local and it was very focused. So I went to this conference called FinCon in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2012. And by the end of that conference, 3 days later, my mind was blown. It was expanded. I had a whole nother view of what I was going to be doing as a teacher and teaching and sharing about real estate investing and financial independence. And a couple of things happened at that conference. One, I met some guys from this place called Bigger Pockets. So Bigger Pockets was founded by Joshua Dorkin. Also Brandon Turner was there. And so I met these guys, and I met Scott Trench as well, who's now the president of Bigger Pockets. And just got to hang out with those guys and see what they were doing behind the scenes and talk to them and get advice from them. And so I was, again, teaching locally and enjoying that and making an impact on a smaller number of people, but talking to those guys, seeing that there were thousands and millions of people out there who were interested and needed help with this content. And I'd been contributing a little bit to Bigger Pockets, but I got to go on their podcast there at that event. I think it was episode number 89 maybe. And so got to kind of spread the word about what I was doing and my story. But I also realized that I was writing and teaching a small group of people that exact same content I was teaching could be expanded. I could write this thing called a blog where I put articles on my own website, and then eventually people might start discovering it. So that was really the origin of CoachCarson.com. I'd had a website before that, but I really started deliberately turning that into something that I tried to grow and share with other people. And I talked to the Bigger Pockets guys, and I started thinking and making a plan for how can I create a blog, put the word out, and go from there. So here we are in 2021. I really can't believe everything that's happened since then. Just to name a few. Since that time, I've published a book with Bigger Pockets. It's had over 25,000 people have bought that book. Published a blog, of course. CoachCarson.com was really the first thing I started, and there's been well over 1 million people who've read that blog, who've benefited from the articles. I started a podcast in 2019, and I'm approaching 1 million downloads on the podcast. And then this YouTube channel, which has really started growing lately, has over 1 million views and 25,000 subscribers. Now, I say all that not to brag. I'm really actually humbled by this, that all of you, that people out there have benefited from this and that I can make an impact. And really the moral of the story, though, for me, is beyond just Coach Carson, is that all of us have these times. It could be a book, it could be an event, it could be a person, but we all have these opportunities where we're kind of thinking small, where we're making an impact or things are going okay, but hey, you could actually expand what you're doing. You could expand the impact you're making. You could actually do more of what matters, which is the theme of this channel, of course. And sometimes it takes something else outside of ourselves to jostle us a little bit, to get us outside of our comfort zone. And my advice, though, if you want to follow the advice that I took, is to listen to that calling, to take that growth, to expand yourself. It might be that you just want to buy a property now. You've never bought real estate investing, and you want to get started in real estate. It might be starting a different business. It might be retiring from your business or your job altogether and making a leap to do something different. Whatever it is, I hope you find the inspiration. I hope you find some encouragement to do that. And in the rest of this video, I want to share some ideas and take you around at FinCon as I go through the event. But also, I'm going to interview some people and get some ideas on what one book, event, person really changed the trajectory of these people's lives related to money. So we'll see you soon. Just got to the hotel. The conference is starting. Look at the skyline view of Austin. Pretty incredible. See the State House in the background. It's going to be a whirlwind. The way this conference works is you talk to people, get to meet other YouTubers, other podcasters, other bloggers. And it's basically a nonstop, just get to know you, catch up with people for the last year. A lot of people I only know online. You get to see them here at a conference. So it's a lot of fun. I learn a lot. I'm a student of teaching and sharing. And so this is a lot of fun for me just to go out and start talking to people. Let's go.
Have to go with is Camp FI of 2018. I'd been reading all this financial independence content. I saw that people were retiring in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s, but it was all online stuff. And as you know, we all are online, you get skeptical. You don't know if it's real, might be a scam. I'm not sure, like, are these people really doing this, or is this just some ploy to get me on their email list to ultimately join their $10,000 course? And then I went to this event, Camp FI, in 2018. I met all these amazing people, content creators, and just regular folks who were traveling the world with their families, who had retired on whether it was real estate or portfolio income. And shaking hands, making eye contact, actually talking to these people one-on-one, I'm like, this is a legit community. Like, I can actually go and do this. And my mindset just flipped, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this as fast as humanly possible. And the trajectory of my life kind of changed forever after that first event. So forever indebted to Stephen Boyer, founder of that event, Camp FI 2018, and changed my life.
Yes, I read this article, I'm pretty sure it was on Market Watch, way back in the day, 2015, about a husband and wife duo. Wife was a teacher, husband was a firefighter. Joint income was about $75K, and they had paid off their $200K mortgage by themselves. And I was making $20K a year as a waiter, and I had $20K in debt, and it just really inspired me and showed me that someone who wasn't earning six figures and who didn't come from wealth was doing amazing things with their money, and like I could too.
Yeah, I'd say that growing up, I had a two-teacher home. My parents both taught, and so we didn't have a ton of money. But I went to a private school where everyone else seemed to have a lot of money, and so I think at an early age, I felt like money was the end goal. It was kind of what I wanted to go after with my life. Wanted to make a lot of money, and first job I had outside of college My wife and I went on staff with really a ministry where you raise support. And so it was kind of this interesting thing where all of a sudden money became this blessing or this tool to then achieve greater life goals that you might have. And so I'd say having to actually raise support and having to ask people to help fund a bigger thing that I was doing in my life helped me to realize that money, again, was a blessing or a tool to be used to further life goals, impacts you want to make in the world, things like that. It's not actually the end, it's just the means to greater ends in your life. So,
yeah, becoming a single mom. So I became a single mom in my 20s, and I immediately understood that I could not afford the designer brands and the fancy apartments and the brand new cars that all of my friends had. When you have to pay for rent for a 2-bedroom and pay for daycare at the same time, it is a life-altering experience. So I will say that becoming a mom was one of the best things that happened to me because it gave me focus. It helped me to understand, what my purpose was, and it allowed me to really lean into understanding my finances. Because before that, I signed up for all of the credit cards on my college campus. They came by and gave us free 2-liter sodas and some t-shirts, and before you know it, I had all the cards. And I maxed them out because they were like $500. Before you know it, I had some debt, but becoming a mom really helped me to focus, and I decided to clean that up because I needed to be more responsible.
I had a great half day at FinCon yesterday. Today's the first full day. I'm already losing my voice and I'm getting ready to go back downstairs. Did my little morning routine. You might be interested in that. I have my morning reading. Do a little bit of Stoicism, Epictetus, love that, Marcus Aurelius, and some James Stockdale, who quotes from Epictetus but talks about his experience as a prisoner of war in Vietnam, and really kind of cool idea of, in really big adversity, what you do and how you use Stoicism. See all these cards. I actually use note cards whenever I get a big idea from a book. I just kind of keep those inserted in the book and then collect those and put them by ideas. That's how I come up with a lot of the content. So I'm going to go downstairs, listen to some sessions here at FinCon, and also find some people to talk to about their one book, their one event, or maybe one person who's influenced their mindset the most about money.
Yeah, one event was, I remember I went and bought a car one time, and even though I kind of heard at times that you should have a pre-approval, right? And I didn't get a pre-approval. I just went to because I was just looking, right? So I went to Ford, for example, and I forget where it was, but they told me, they said, hey, just use our guys, our financial guys or whatever, and once you use those guys, then you get a better deal. Against my better judgment, I was still learning. I just went with their finance people, and then later on, I found out I had this huge, ridiculous interest rate, and then afterwards, and they wrote up all the paperwork and everything, and they said, hey, you're good to go. I took the truck, showed it to my family, showed it to everybody. It was a SUV. I'll never forget it. And then next thing you know, they called me like 4 days later and was like, hey, you need to come back in. You didn't get financed. I had terrible credit, right, from messing up earlier. And then they told me that, hey, you got to come back, got to redo the paperwork. Your payment's not going to be $300. It's like $549. And I was stuck with that for 6 years. And still to this day, I made it all the way to the 6 years, and I had some terrible times during that time because I used a lot of money in that car. And after that, I learned. Always get a pre-approval. Always know your credit score. Do everything you can to prepare before you go and purchase something large like a car.
The One Thing by Gary Keller. So this is like a total life philosophy, but essentially like, what's the one thing that which by doing that thing, it can make everything else easier or unnecessary. And so like that is kind of a philosophy I've taken into money and spending and earning, to be like, okay, I don't have to focus on a million things. There is so much you can focus on. But if you just look at like the highest ROI thing, then you just boil down your focus into that one thing, and you don't have to focus on a million things. And it makes being good with money so much more attainable, so much more sustainable, and so much more enjoyable.
I don't know if I can point to a single event, but there is this Warren Buffett quote that says something along the lines of, if you don't find a way to make money in your sleep, you're going to work until you die. And it just kind of hits you, because we all kind of start out, at least I did, working a job for money, trading hours for dollars. But if you don't carve out at least some time in your week to make some sometimes speculative investment in generating some time leveraged income, it doesn't have to be totally passive, but something that's not completely coupled to the hours that you put into it. That's been the biggest game changer for me, is trying to project, 3-5 years down the road. What does success look like here? Does it look like a second job, or does it look like something that has a little more freedom attached to it?
Probably the book Enough by John Bogle talks about how he made Vanguard a not-for-profit instead of a for-profit company like Fidelity. And he talks about what the consequence of that was, where he gave up basically $50 billion. So he calculated what his net worth would have been had he kept Vanguard as a for-profit, and it would have been about $50 billion. And he ended up, at the end of his life, being worth about $50 million instead of $50 billion. And I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting, right? So here's this guy that could have been worth, 1,000x what he was, and he chose not to be. And he chose not to be to have an impact in the world. So I think that you can make plenty of money while also having an impact in the world and not being just a pure profit maximizer. And I thought that was a pretty interesting idea.
I made it to the last day of FinCon and I almost lost my voice. I've been talking so much, but it's been another inspiring experience, just like the ones in the past. And one of the particular things I've been inspired by is to continue making this YouTube channel, Coach Carson TV, as good as possible, expanding what I'm offering you and interacting with you more. And so if you have any questions or any suggestions on how I can make this channel even better, there's topics you want to hear, if there's questions you have, if there's some different formats, things you'd like me to show behind the scenes, that's one of the things I like to do more, is show some behind the scenes of me in my hometown, what I'm doing with my real estate business, but also just some thoughts and some stories and some things that you might not have seen in some of my other videos. So I would love to hear from you and have some suggestions. And if you're new to the channel and this is the first time you've watched it, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything in the future. I have new podcast episodes every Monday and new YouTube videos every Friday. You've been watching Coach Carson TV, which is all about investing in real estate, achieving financial independence, and doing more of what matters. See you next time.